Hey, CrossFit Brennan, Coach Jared here. I wanted to start something, or at least try something. Just a little kind of like mini video log, I guess we'll call it. Any discussion topic, anything that you guys find interesting about CrossFit training, conditioning. I'm not the nutrition guy, but we can always grab one of the nutritionists to talk about something nutrition related. We're going to start off calling it Thursday Thoughts. If you have a better name, I'm open to suggestions. But for now, Thursday afternoons at 4 p.m., we're going to have Thursday Thoughts. Today, I'm going to open it up by talking about strength and hypertrophy. And I want to start by defining a couple of terms that I'm going to be using in this little vlog. So strength is our ability to apply force. How much weight can you lift? Hypertrophy is the growth and size of muscle. So when we're doing hypertrophy training, we're doing it with the intention of making a muscle bigger. And we'll talk about why that's important. Sets, you guys are probably all familiar with this, but I'll cover it anyway. Sets are the grouping of exercises. So let's say I'm doing 3 sets of 5 reps. That means I'm going to do 5 reps on whatever exercise I've got. So let's say I'm doing back squat. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back squats. Those are my number of reps. And the sets are how many times I'm going to do that 5 rep sequence. So sets and reps. And then volume. Volume is an accumulation of work. It can be total training volume over an entire workout, or it can be volume per exercise, volume per week, per month. It's just an accumulation of work. Basically, you could look at it as sets times reps. And if we want to get really, really detailed, we can add weight in there for total volume load, but that's not applicable to our discussion that we're going to talk about today. First things first, how do we get stronger? Well, we get stronger by getting better at exercises. So we see this a lot with novice trainees or beginner trainees. They start at the gym and their back squat is the empty barbell, and then within a week they're back squatting 95 pounds or 100 pounds, and then a couple weeks after that they're back squatting 135 pounds, and then in 6 months they're back squatting 225 pounds, and then all of a sudden things start to stagnate a little bit. What's happened here is this athlete has gotten more adapted to the exercise, so they're better at the exercise, and that's really important. Another thing that makes us stronger is mechanical tension. Applying force to a muscle. So this is going to give the muscle a better contractile force. So there's lots of things that go into it. The muscle structure itself, like the muscle tissue, the tendons on the ends of the muscles that connect it to the bone, how many fibers are contracting at one time. That's a really, really important part of strength. We call that neuromuscular efficiency. So if I've got a muscle that's got all of these fibers here, but only these ones contract all at the same time, I'm not utilizing the best ability of that muscle. So we get better at lifting by getting stronger. Rate of force development is another one. Again, we're talking about using all of these muscle fibers. Well, maybe I'm only using these ones like this, but maybe I'm using all of them, but they're not in sequence. So I'm kind of like using these ones, and then these ones are working, but these ones are not working. If I can train my body to use all of these muscle fibers all at once, that's really great application of force, and that's rate of force development. So there's a lot of things that go into becoming stronger. And the training that makes us stronger is, I'm sure you probably could guess this, heavy lifting. If I want to learn and get better at lifting heavy weights, I have to lift heavy weights. So if our goal as athletes or trainees is to get stronger and learn how to apply force, then we need to practice that skill of applying force, and we need to do it specifically. So if I want to make my back squat stronger, I need to do lots of back squats. If I want to make my front squat stronger, I need to do more front squats. If I want to make my legs stronger, I have to do lots of heavy leg exercises. So that's a little bit about strength and how we train it by doing heavy exercises, specifically low reps. The lower the reps are, the more intense, the higher percentage of our one repetition max that we're going to be working at, and the better we're going to be at recruiting muscles, creating synergistic muscle activity, like the right muscles working together. So I've got, this muscle over here that kind of works as a complement to this muscle, and if they work together really well, then I get extra bonus strength from that. So those types of things, coordination is a big part of being strong. Now, how do we grow bigger muscles? Bigger muscles is really interesting because for the longest time, it was thought that low reps were for strength and power and high reps were for hypertrophy. But we know now that all of the reps produce great hypertrophy. What really matters is sets taken to failure. So volume load. As long as we're matching volume and we're taking sets to failure, then we're going to see improvements in hypertrophy. So let's say I have an athlete who's doing 3 sets of 10 in the back squat. We'll just stick on back squat. And all 3 of those sets of 10 are to failure. Another athlete does 10 sets of 3, all 10 sets of 3 to failure. We've got 30 reps to failure, 30 reps to failure. Those 2 athletes are going to see similar improvements in hypertrophy. Same with 2 sets of 15. And, like a set of 20 and a set of 10. As long as we're taking our sets to failure, we're going to see similar adaptations on the hypertrophy front. There's a few things other things that go into training hypertrophy, which is going to be full range of motion. As long as we're training that muscle through a full range of motion and not doing these partial range of motions, we're going to get better improvements in hypertrophy muscle growth. Mechanical tension, that's another thing that I talked about in strength, but mechanical tension is a signal that tells the muscle, oh boy, there's a lot of stress on this muscle. I bet you if we were bigger, it might not be so hard. So mechanical tension, lifting heavy weights, signals the body to grow bigger. And then another one that is kind of like, it's well utilized and it's actually really powerful in CrossFit. It's what gives CrossFit such great hypertrophy gains is metabolic stress. When we do exercise, especially high intensity exercise, and when we take our sets to failure, we get all of these metabolites, byproducts. Think of it like the exhaust that comes out of your car. Well, your body recognizes that. It says, hey, there's all this stuff in my muscles. I'm going to create an adaptation that says, time to get bigger. So when we're training strength, we have to lift heavy weights and preferably in lower rep ranges because that's going to make us able to lift heavier weights. And the heavier the weights that we practice lifting, the stronger we're going to get. If our goal is to build muscle, then we want to accumulate as much volume as we can while training at or near failure. It's recommended that we have like anywhere from 1 to 3 reps in reserve. So we're not training to complete failure, catastrophic failure, but we are approaching failure. We're glimpsing it. So if their goal as a trainee is to get very, very strong, then make sure you're lifting as heavyweight as possible. If your goal as a trainee is to get really big and muscular, then make sure that you're taking as many sets to failure as you possibly can. What are the pros and cons of each of these? Well, as you would guess, constantly lifting heavy weights can be hard on the body. So if my goal is to build muscle, I'm going to try and manage the amount of stress that's going into my body by just lifting lighter weights for bigger sets. That will be a little bit easier on my joints, a little bit easier on my tendons and ligaments. I can get the benefits of having big muscles and growth without the stress on my joints. Now, if I want to be stronger, there's no way around it. I have to lift those heavy weights. We can kind of like mix and match though. So let's say something that might be holding me back in a lot of cases is I'm just undersized. I don't have big muscles. Those muscles don't have the ability to contract. You can imagine a small muscle compared to a big muscle. That big muscle is going to have a higher potential to be strong. So maybe we do some heavy weight training and then we supplement with some accessory hypertrophy exercises. They're going to grow our muscles bigger without putting more and more stress on our joints and our tendons and our ligaments. And those are really the only pros and cons to each of those. The heavy training is going to be harder on the body, but it's going to elicit the same level of hypertrophy and increased levels of strength. The hypertrophy style training, like the larger style sets, is going to be just as good at driving hypertrophy, but it unfortunately won't make you quite as strong or improve your muscles' ability to contract or that synergy between muscles. So those are your pros and cons. Another consideration would be your diet. if your goal is to build muscle and get stronger, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to your body, and you're going to be signaling a lot of growth. So we need to make sure that we're feeding the body the nutrients that it needs, and primarily that's going to come from protein. Eating enough protein is going to be a big part of getting stronger and growing your muscles bigger. You could be, if the goal is muscle growth, now this isn't across the board, but if the goal is muscle growth and strength improvement, 1 to 1.5 as much as 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. Obviously that's variable. If I've got a lot of excess body weight in the form of fat, I might not be, let's say 300 pounds. 600 grams of protein is a pretty unrealistic goal, but it might work for you. That's kind of a rough guideline if we look at kind of like a lean body mass type. 1 to 1.5 as much as 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. Now, closing out, I've got a couple different things going on here. If you have goals surrounding strength, then what you can do is you can just kind of take this information and think about what's right for you. Assess your goals. Like for me at this stage of my life, I enjoy being strong. I'm more than strong enough for all of the daily activities that I need. I just like to stay in shape. So lifting really heavy weights all the time, knowing that it's going to be hard on my elbows and my shoulders and my hips and my knees and my low back, it's not super high up on the priority. So I'm not really going to chase those hot, heavy weights anymore. Previous, 5-10 years ago when competing in CrossFit was a very big part of my life, I would have been really into chasing big heavy weights because I needed to be strong. Now, not so much. I just want to reap the benefits of weightlifting and what that does for my body and for my bones and for my well-being. If your goal is to be as strong as possible, know that you need to lift weights. If your goal is just well-being and maybe adding a little bit of muscle for physical appearance or for mental health, or just because that's what you want to do, then know that you don't have to lift weights, but you should still be taking sets to failure to get the best out of your training. And just have kind of like an honest conversation with yourself about where your goals are, how your training fits in with those goals, and start adhering to this plan. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, if you want to modify your workouts, or if you want to get any kind of like help with additional training, all of the coaches are always available to talk about it, and myself included. We can help you out, set some goals. Anything you're interested in, just hit us up, and we're here for you. Happy to help. I hope you found that interesting, and this is the first one, so I'm sure I rambled quite a bit, and maybe as we go along week after week, I'll get better and better. One thing I'd like from you guys, if you would please just post up some suggestions. Anything that you're curious about with regards to CrossFit, mobility, strength, conditioning, nutrition, mindset, competition, any of these things, I'd love to talk about them in the video format. Drop them in the comments, or every Monday I'll just post a reminder that it's time to get your questions in, and I'll be happy to talk about them. Thursday Thoughts, round 1. I hope you enjoyed it.